Hey everyone, and welcome. Tonight, we're going to be diving deep into a world you might think you know, but I promise you, it's stranger, more detailed, and far more fascinating than you can possibly imagine. We're journeying back in time to a place of incredible luxury and even deeper meaning, so find a comfortable spot, and let's get started. We're talking about the hygiene habits of ancient Egyptian royal women. But I want you to forget everything you know about a quick morning shower or a relaxing bubble bath. This was a completely different level of commitment. It was a daily, hours-long ritual so intense, so detailed, and so full of meaning that it makes our modern routines, as complex as we think they are, look like child's play. Just try to picture this for a moment. Their version of soap was a paste of clay and oils infused with priceless resins. They washed their most private areas with water steeped in hibiscus flowers, scraped their entire bodies with polished bronze tools to get smooth skin, and would even have their toenails perfumed before climbing into bed. This wasn't a chore for them, this was their reality, a daily, silent performance of their power, their purity, and their place in the universe. And all of this happened in the deepest, most guarded privacy. Everything we're about to talk about took place behind heavy curtains and intricately carved stone doors, a world away from prying eyes. Her servants, who were highly trained for these tasks, moved like shadows in the room. They weren't even allowed to look directly at the royal woman. They were tending to a rule that shows just how sacred and untouchable she was considered to be. So now is the time to get comfortable. Dim the lights, maybe put on a fan for some soothing background noise, and just let yourself sink into your chair or your bed. We are about to step gently into this quiet, fragrant, and forgotten world, a world where being clean wasn't just a pleasant habit, but a sacred, unshakable law. While a queen in medieval Europe might have woken up to the harsh clang of a bell and dipped her hands into a shared basin of cold water, an Egyptian royal's day began in an atmosphere of absolute silence and enveloping warmth. There were no loud noises, no rushed commands, and certainly no chill in the air. Her awakening was a carefully orchestrated moment of peace, designed to gently transition her from the world of dreams back into her divine role. As the very first hint of dawn began to lighten the sky, two servants would enter her sleeping chamber. They moved barefoot across the cool, polished stone floors, making no sound that might disturb her. In their hands, they carried gleaming ceramic bowls, not with cold water, but with water that had been warmed and gently infused with the delicate, sweet-smelling petals of the sacred blue lotus flower. This wasn't just a routine she followed, it was a sacred, unchanging ritual that she had likely performed every single morning of her adult life. It was a deep connection to her past, a quiet communion with her mother, her grandmother, and the entire line of royal women who had come before her. Each silent, deliberate movement was steeped in tradition, reinforcing the order and stability that she, as a royal, was meant to embody for her entire kingdom. Before her feet could even think about touching the cool stone of the floor, the very first act of purification began. A servant would present a small cup, and she would take a sip of water mixed with a special, naturally occurring salt called natron. She would swish this gritty, saline solution in her mouth, not just to clean it, but to ritually purify her breath and her speech for the day to come. You see, natron was a huge deal in ancient Egypt. It wasn't just some table salt, it was a truly sacred substance, believed to have powerful cleansing properties. It was harvested from dry lake beds and used by priests to purify the grand temples. Most famously, it was the key ingredient in the mummification process, used to dry out and preserve the bodies of the dead so they could live forever in the afterlife. So, for her to use it every morning was a deeply symbolic act. After the potent, purifying rinse of natron, the next phase of her awakening began, shifting the mood from sacred cleansing to gentle beautification. The servants would bring forward those polished bowls of warm, lotus-scented water. The royal woman would then delicately dip her hands in and wash her face, the fragrant, soothing liquid a lovely, and welcome contrast to the harsh saltiness of the natron rinse. The lotus flower itself held a place of deep importance in their world, which made its presence in her morning water much more than just a simple air freshener. This beautiful flower sinks into the water at night and reopens with the dawn, so it was a powerful symbol of creation, rebirth, and the sun itself. To wash her face with this water was to symbolically take part in that daily cosmic rebirth, starting her day with a touch of divine grace. Once her face and hands were perfectly clean, the servants would carefully dry her skin. They didn't use a reusable towel, but instead used pieces of incredibly soft, fine linen, almost like gauze. Each piece of linen was designated for a specific part of her body, one for her face, one for her right hand, one for her left, and each piece was used only this one time. It's a level of extravagance that is hard for us to even comprehend. So, what happened to these slightly used, perfectly good pieces of fine linen? They were immediately set aside to be burned. This practice shows just how seriously the Egyptians took the idea of purity and contamination. In their minds, any cloth that had touched the body and absorbed even the slightest impurity was now ritually tainted. It couldn't be washed clean. It had to be completely and utterly destroyed by fire. The quality of this linen was an immediate and unmistakable sign of her exalted status. The fabric used by royalty was of a gossamer-like quality, so fine and sheer that it was sometimes called woven air. It was a world away from the coarser, more durable linen worn by common laborers. This stark difference in the very fabric that touched their skin was a constant, visible reminder of the rigid social hierarchy of ancient Egypt. With that first, gentle in-bed ritual complete, the royal woman would finally rise and proceed to a dedicated cleansing room. Think of this as the ancient Egyptian version of a luxurious, private spa bathroom. This movement was a significant transition, taking her from the semi-public space of her bedchamber deeper into the secluded heart of her quarters, a place where the real work of her daily purification would unfold. This cleansing room was often a marvel of ancient engineering. Archaeological discoveries in elite homes show rooms with smooth limestone floors, which were often sloped towards a drain to carry away all the used water. Many featured a raised slab where a woman could stand while being showered with water poured from jars, or even a sunken, keyhole-shaped limestone tub for a full immersion bath. Here, in this private sanctuary, her servants would help her undress for a complete, full-body wash. They wouldn't use soap as we know it, but rather a specially prepared cleansing paste. This was a thick, slightly gritty mixture, usually made from a base of clay or ash, which had natural abrasive and absorbent qualities that could lift dirt and excess oil from the skin. But this ancient soap was much more than just a simple abrasive. The functional base of clay and ash was enriched with a variety of precious and expensive ingredients to counteract its harshness. Costly imported substances like the rich, warm resin of myrrh and the sacred scent of frankincense were mixed into the paste, transforming it from a simple cleanser into a perfumed, skin-softening treatment that left the skin not just clean, but moisturized and smelling divine. After the cleansing paste had been thoroughly applied to every inch of her body, the next, more vigorous stage began. A servant would take up a strigil, a curved tool typically made of bronze, and begin to carefully scrape the paste from her entire body. This process removed not only the paste itself, but also a layer of dead skin, accumulated sweat, and any lingering impurities, leaving her skin exceptionally smooth, polished, and deeply cleansed in a way that simple washing could never achieve. Now I know what you're thinking. Scraping your skin with a bronze tool sounds a little harsh, maybe even painful. But this wasn't some rough, sharp knife. The strigil was a carefully crafted instrument, and its use was a skill. It was also a common practice across the ancient world, from Egypt to Greece and Rome, where athletes would use it to scrape off oil and sand after training. For the royal woman, it was the final, vigorous step in achieving a level of smoothness and purity that simple washing could never hope to match. After that intense exfoliation, it was time for a full body rinse to wash away every last trace of the paste and scraped off skin. This was a moment of pure, refreshing relief. Servants would pour bucket after bucket of clean, often warmed, water over her body in a continuous, gentle cascade. You can just imagine the feeling of the warm water rinsing everything away, leaving her skin feeling brand new, immaculately clean, and ready for the next, more luxurious stages of her transformation. And now we come to a really important step, something that was central to the Egyptian idea of a civilized body hair removal. In ancient Egypt, all body hair was considered unclean, untamed, and frankly, a little uncivilized. It was associated with the wildness of animals and foreigners. To be truly pure and orderly, one had to be perfectly smooth, a blank canvas, a body completely under control. They had a few different and very meticulous methods to achieve this flawless, hairless state. Servants used sharp, leaf-shaped bronze razors for a close, careful shave. For any stray hairs, they had bronze tweezers to pluck them with precision. And perhaps most impressively, they practiced an early form of sugaring, using a thick, sticky paste made from honey that was applied to the skin and then stripped away, removing the hair right from the root. Being completely hairless was more than just a beauty trend. It was a powerful and very visible symbol of purity and high status. It was one of the clearest ways to separate the elite from everyone else. A smooth, hairless body was a sign that you were refined, in control, and a true member of the civilized, orderly world of the Egyptian court. It was a physical representation of their core beliefs about order versus chaos. After all that washing, scraping, and depilation, her skin was immaculately clean. But it was also stripped of its natural oils and vulnerable to the intensely dry Egyptian climate. It was time to put that life-giving moisture back in. It was time to oil up. This wasn't just a luxury, it was an absolute necessity to keep the skin soft, supple, and protected from the harsh desert air. They used all kinds of incredible oils, each chosen for its specific properties. There was moringa oil, which was prized for its nourishing qualities, thick and protective castor oil, and lighter oils like almond and sesame. But the secret wasn't just in the base oil itself. The true magic was that they never, ever used them plain. The oils were merely a canvas for the real art of perfumery. You see, these base oils were infused for weeks at a time with a whole symphony of aromatic ingredients. Servants would steep flowers like jasmine and the sacred blue lotus, fragrant woods and spices, and precious, imported resins like myrrh until the oil was completely saturated with their scent. This slow, patient process created unique, complex, and incredibly valuable perfumes that were truly fit for a queen. Once the perfect scented oil was ready, a servant would begin a slow, deliberate full-body massage. This wasn't a quick rub-down, it was a luxurious, therapeutic process. The warm oil was worked deeply into her skin, from her shoulders down to the arches of her feet, moisturizing her body while also relaxing her muscles. This left her skin with a radiant, healthy glow, a shimmering sheen that signified vitality and life. And the scent itself was incredibly important for a very deep spiritual reason. The ancient Egyptians believed that the gods themselves quite literally smelled sweet. A divine fragrance was a sign of their immortality. So, for a royal woman to be perfumed so lavishly was to wrap herself in an aura of holiness. It was a way of emulating the gods, of getting one step closer to the divine with every fragrant touch. This wasn't just a single, all-over scent either. They practiced a kind of scent layering, applying different perfumes to different parts of the body to create a complex and personal fragrance. She might have a mint-infused oil on her arms, a heavier myrrh on her legs, and a delicate floral scent on her neck and wrists. It meant that her presence was a constantly shifting and captivating sensory experience. For special occasions and grand banquets, they had a truly unique and dramatic way of staying fragrant all night long. The perfume cone. This was literally a cone, made from a base of animal fat or beeswax that had been packed with strong scents, like cinnamon or frankincense. She would wear this cone on top of her wig, and as the evening went on, her body heat would slowly melt it, allowing fragrant, oily rivulets to run down her wig and onto her shoulders, constantly refreshing her perfume. Now, with her body perfectly cleansed, moisturized, and perfumed, it was finally time for the last stage of her transformation makeup. She would be seated on a low, comfortable stool in front of a table holding her cosmetic set. Instead of a glass mirror, she would gaze into a sheet of highly polished bronze or copper, which gave a soft, warm, almost golden reflection of her face. And her makeup kit was a treasure in itself. It was filled with beautiful, elegant containers, holding all of her precious cosmetics. There were jars carved from luminous, white alabaster for her creams and ointments, and small, vibrant pots made of blue-green faience to hold her kohl. Even the little spoons and applicators were works of art, often carved from ivory. These weren't disposable items, they were cherished possessions. It's so important to understand that for the Egyptians, makeup wasn't just about looking beautiful. It was a powerful fusion of beauty, magic, and medicine. They believed that applying cosmetics, especially around the eyes and mouth, created a magical barrier on the face. This barrier was thought to protect them from evil spirits trying to enter the body, and even from certain illnesses. Of course, the most famous and dramatic look was the heavy black kohl eyeliner. This was made from a finely ground-up mineral called galena, which is a form of lead sulfide. A servant would use a small, smooth stick made of ivory or wood, dip it into the kohl powder, and then draw it between the closed eyelids, lining both the top and bottom in one fluid motion to create that iconic, almond-shaped eye. And here's something amazing: their belief in kohl's protective power was actually true, just not in the way they thought. Modern scientists have discovered that the lead compounds in the galena had significant antibacterial properties. In a dusty, fly-ridden environment like the Nile Valley, where eye infections were incredibly common, this daily application of eyeliner actually served as a form of preventative medicine. The dramatic winged eyeliner style also had a deep religious meaning. It was designed to mimic the markings around the eye of a falcon, which was the sacred animal of the sky god, Horus. This shape was known as the Eye of Horus, and it was one of the most powerful symbols of protection, wholeness, and healing in their entire religion. So, by putting on her makeup, she was also putting on a powerful, protective amulet. Alongside the dramatic black kohl, they also loved a vibrant green eyeshadow, which was made from a ground-up copper, or called malachite. This green paste was often applied all over the eyelid, from the lash line right up to the brow. In Egyptian culture, the color green was a potent symbol of health, fertility, new life, and rebirth. To paint your eyes green was to surround them with the promise of life and vitality. And for the final touches of color, she would use a paste made from a natural clay called red ochre. This clay, which is rich in iron, was ground into a fine, deep red powder. It was then mixed with a little oil or fat to create a creamy pigment. A servant would use a fingertip or a small brush to apply this to her cheeks as a blush, giving her a healthy, youthful glow, and more generously to her lips as a bold and lasting stain. But we have to talk about a hidden, tragic danger in all of this. That beautiful, protective kohl eyeliner was made from galena, which is a lead ore. And as we know today, lead is incredibly toxic. While it did help prevent eye infections in the short term, the long-term, cumulative effect of absorbing lead through the skin every single day was likely devastating. In their quest for magical protection and beauty, they were unknowingly poisoning themselves, a silent danger lurking in their most prized cosmetic. With the makeup on the face complete, the final touches of color were applied to the hands and feet. A servant would bring a paste made from the leaves of the henna plant, and this would be carefully applied to her fingernails and toenails. After being left on for a while to stain the skin, it would be washed off to reveal a deep, reddish-brown color. Clean, perfectly shaped, and stained nails were a clear and immediate sign of a life of leisure, a sign that these hands never had to touch dirt, grime, or manual labor. And now, with her face a perfect, painted mask, it was time for the final, crowning touch, the wig. This is one of the most fascinating parts of Egyptian beauty, because most elite Egyptians, both men and women, actually shaved their heads or kept their hair cut extremely short. They did this for cleanliness and to stay cool in the intense heat. The wig was the grand, public hairstyle that was placed over this clean, private canvas. And these wigs were incredibly elaborate works of art. They were made from real human hair, meticulously styled into hundreds of tiny, intricate braids and curls. They were often heavy, layered, and long, cascading down the shoulders. To make them even more spectacular, they were frequently decorated with beads, ivory rings, and even hollow gold tubes that were threaded onto individual braids, turning her hair into a shimmering, expensive crown. But the wig wasn't just a fashion statement, it was an incredibly practical solution to a number of problems. A shaved head was the single best way to prevent lice, which were a huge and constant problem in the ancient world. The wig then protected that sensitive, shaved scalp from the brutal Egyptian sun. It was a perfect combination of high fashion and practical hygiene, allowing them to be both clean and incredibly stylish. 6 strong now, at last, she was ready to be dressed. A servant would approach with her garment for the day, which wasn't a complex, structured gown, but a simple, elegant robe. This robe was made of the finest, sheerest white linen imaginable. You can just imagine the feeling of that cool, almost weightless fabric being draped over her freshly oiled skin. This was the final layer of her purification, enveloping her body in a cloud of pure white. That brilliant white color was deeply symbolic. White was the color of purity, of truth, and of Ma'at, the cosmic principle of order and balance that was so central to their worldview. But the quality of the fabric was also an obvious symbol of her incredible wealth and status. The finest linen was called woven air, because it was so sheer you could almost see through it. To wear it was to wear your status for all to see. And keeping these delicate white garments perfectly clean was a monumental task. A whole team of servants was dedicated to doing the royal laundry every single day. They would take the garments to the river or to special washing facilities in the palace and beat them against smooth stones, using the powerful cleansing agent natron to remove any trace of dirt or sweat. It was hard, physical labor, all done so the queen could appear effortlessly pristine. A common person's reality, by contrast, couldn't have been more different. A farmer or a craftsman might own only 1 or 2 rough, durable linen garments, which were often left in their natural, undyed beige color. They were washed far less frequently, simply because they had to stand up to the wear and tear of daily work. The difference in their clothing was one of the most visible and immediate signs of the vast gulf between the classes. Finally, it was time for footwear. Inside the cool, clean palace, she might go barefoot, but to step outside required protection from the dust and dirt of the world. Her sandals were beautifully crafted, often made from woven papyrus reeds or soft leather. For a queen, the straps might be decorated with gold leaf, turning a simple shoe into a piece of jewelry. They were designed to lift her, quite literally, above the common dirt. And there was a good reason for this. In their way of thinking, her feet were considered the most unclean part of the body, simply because they touched the ground. The earth was the source of chaos and impurity, so her feet were a potential point of contamination. Keeping them clean and protecting them with sandals was a big deal. It was about maintaining a barrier between her pure, sacred body and the profane world below. The final layer of her transformation was jewelry, and this was no subtle affair. We're talking about heavy gold collars, called wesset collars. That would cover her entire chest and shoulders, intricately made from hundreds of beads. There were bracelets for her wrists and upper arms, and delicate anklets that would jingle as she walked, all loaded with precious stones like deep blue lapis lazuli and fiery red carnelian. But this jewelry wasn't just ancient Egyptian bling, it was also a suit of magical armor. Each piece was also an amulet, designed to offer powerful magical protection from evil spirits and harm. A bracelet might be carved with the Eye of Horus for protection, while a necklace could feature a scarab beetle, a potent symbol of rebirth and renewal. Her jewelry was both beautiful and functional in a deeply spiritual way. And there she was. After hours of ritual, she was a completed masterpiece, a living, breathing symbol of divine power, cosmic order, and flawless perfection. Imagine seeing her for the first time each day, skin glowing with scented oil, eyes mysterious behind their kohl frame, body draped in pure white linen, and glittering from head to toe with magical gold. She was designed to be awe-inspiring. You have to remember, this entire transformation, from the moment she awoke to the moment she was fully dressed, was a silent, sacred performance that took hours to complete. It wasn't about getting ready in the way we think of it. It was a focused, meditative act of creation where a mortal woman was systematically turned into a divine symbol, ready to perform her duties as a queen. And her work to maintain this perfect state wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning. Hygiene wasn't just a morning thing. It was something that had to be actively maintained all day long. The perfect purity she achieved at dawn was a fragile state, and it required constant vigilance to protect it from the heat, the dust, and the simple act of living in the world. A great example of this is what happened before every meal. Before she would touch any food, a servant would approach with a beautiful pitcher, often made of bronze, and a matching basin. As she held out her hands, the servant would pour a stream of clean water over them, washing away any impurities she might have gathered. It was a small but significant ritual that reinforced her purity before she ate. The same went for her perfume. In the intense Egyptian heat, even the most expensive scents would begin to fade over the course of the day. So, her perfume would be discreetly reapplied throughout the day to keep her smelling fresh and divine. A servant might offer a small pot of scented oil for her wrists, maintaining that fragrant, otherworldly aura that was expected of royalty. They even had a remarkably sophisticated and hygienic approach to menstrual care. Royal women used pads made of soft, folded linen, which was always in plentiful supply in the palace. What's truly amazing is that these pads were disposable. In a world where textiles were incredibly valuable, the fact that these linens were used once and then destroyed shows their absolute commitment to the idea that anything touched by bodily fluids was impure and had to be eliminated. It goes without saying that all of this was done with the utmost, absolute privacy. The royal woman's body was a public symbol of the health and stability of the entire nation. It had to appear perfect, unchanging, and flawless at all times. The natural, messy processes of being human were therefore kept completely hidden, managed in total seclusion to preserve that powerful, public illusion of divine perfection. And this commitment to privacy and cleanliness extended to the most basic human needs. Royal palaces and the villas of the super-rich were equipped with dedicated toilet rooms, an almost unbelievable feature of luxury for the ancient world. The design was actually quite clever and effective. A comfortable seat, often carved from smooth, cool limestone, was positioned over a removable container that was filled with clean sand. Servants were tasked with the unseen but crucial duty of regularly removing and refreshing this container, ensuring that even this function was handled with dignity and cleanliness. You have to understand, having a private room in your house dedicated to this was an incredible luxury, a level of comfort that was completely out of reach for almost anyone else in the ancient world, and even for most people in Europe for thousands of years after. It was another clear and distinct line drawn between the royals and everyone else. It was a statement that their comfort, their privacy, and their purity were being managed and maintained at every single moment of the day. But what's really interesting is to note that this desire for sanitation wasn't just limited to the absolute pinnacle of society. Archaeologists have excavated the village of Deir el-Medina, where the skilled workers who built the royal tombs lived. And they found that even these elite craftsmen had simpler, built-in versions of these private toilets in their homes. This shows that the desire for privacy and household sanitation was a broader cultural value in Egypt, not just an over-the-top obsession of the pharaohs. All of these individual practices, from the lotus water in the morning to the design of their bathrooms, were tied to a single, powerful core belief called W. This is an ancient Egyptian word that's often translated as purity, but it means so much more than just being clean. It describes a state of being ritually pure, whole, and unblemished, the necessary condition to be able to approach the gods, to enter a sacred temple, or to have a successful afterlife. And this powerful idea of purity naturally extended beyond the body and into the home. The royal quarters were treated like a sanctuary, an extension of the queen's own purified body. That meant the entire living space had to be kept spotless. Floors were washed daily, all the linen furnishings were kept impeccably clean, and incense was burned constantly to purify the air and create a pleasing, sacred atmosphere. The whole place was a meticulously controlled bubble of cleanliness and order. Maintaining this pristine environment also meant they had a strategy for pest control, which was a constant battle in the ancient world. Their number one weapon in this fight was the cat. Cats were beloved and even worshipped in Egypt, partly because they were seen as graceful and mysterious, but also because they were ruthless and efficient hunters of mice, rats, and snakes. They were the elegant, living guardians of the purity of the home. Now, when you step back and compare them to other ancient cultures, you realize that Egypt's elite were really on another level with their personal hygiene. It wasn't just that they had the means, they had the motivation. Their entire worldview was built around this concept of ritual purity in a way that was unique. For them, cleanliness was a form of worship, a daily devotion to the principle of divine order. If you look over at the great civilizations in Mesopotamia, for example, people were certainly concerned with being clean. But they didn't seem to have the same deep, spiritual, all-encompassing obsession with personal purity. For them, washing was about getting the dirt off. For an Egyptian royal, washing was about preparing your soul to meet the gods. It was a fundamentally different way of thinking. There were really only two other civilizations at the time that could compete with Egypt when it came to sanitation, though for different reasons. On the island of Crete, the amazing Minoan palaces, like the one at Knossos, had bathrooms with terracotta tubs and incredibly advanced drainage systems. They even engineered what might be the world's first ever flush toilet, which is just mind-blowing for that time period. And then, far to the east in what is now Pakistan and India, the cities of the Indus Valley civilization, like Mohenjo-Daro, had incredible public sanitation systems. Many regular houses had their own bathing areas and toilets that were connected to a city-wide network of covered drains. This suggests a more community-focused approach to public health, which is a fascinating contrast to the private, status-driven purity of the Egyptian elite. And that's the key takeaway here. In Egypt, more than anywhere else, this extreme cleanliness was the ultimate class divider. The fragrant, pampered, protected life of a royal woman was an entire universe away from the life of a common farmer. The sheer amount of resources, the water, the linen, the imported perfumes, the servant's time, made this level of purity the ultimate, unattainable luxury reserved for the very, very top of society. The reason we know so many of these intimate details is thanks to incredible ancient documents that have survived, most famously the Ebers Papyrus. This is a huge medical scroll, one of the oldest and best preserved in the world, and it's basically an encyclopedia of their knowledge. It has sections on surgery and diseases, but it's also packed with recipes for things like anti-wrinkle creams, deodorants and skin treatments, giving us a direct window into their world. And what's so cool is that archaeology backs it all up. Everything we read about in the texts, we find in the ground. Museums all over the world are filled with the actual, tangible tools of their beauty routines. We've found the cosmetic palettes they used to grind their makeup, still stained with pigment. We have their elegant coal jars, their bronze razors, their ivory combs, all pulled from tombs where they were left for the afterlife. And of course, we see it all beautifully illustrated in their art. The walls of tombs are like a visual guide to elite life in ancient Egypt. There are countless paintings and reliefs that show these intimate moments. Servants massaging their mistresses with oil, attendants styling wigs, and queens sitting before their mirrors applying makeup. The art shows us not just what they did, but that it was a normal part of a luxurious, pampered daily life. But if you think the royals had it tough, the only people with even stricter rules were the priests and priestesses. For them, purity wasn't just about status, it was a professional requirement to serve the gods. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus tells us they had to shave their entire bodies, head, face, everything, every single day, to ensure not a single louse or impurity could enter the temple. They were on a whole other level. Now, as the sun began to set over the Nile and evening arrived, the whole elaborate process of the morning began to reverse itself, but in a much quieter, gentler, and more intimate way. The dawn ritual was about preparing for the world, about building a divine image. The evening ritual was about carefully dismantling that image, about shedding the day, and preparing the body for the mysterious journey of sleep. The very first act of this gentle undoing was to take off the heavy makeup. That dramatic, protective mask of coal and ochre had to be carefully removed. A servant would use a special cleansing cream, which was a rich mixture of oil or animal fat blended with a little powdered lime, which acted as a soft exfoliant. This was gently massaged onto the face to dissolve the stubborn, lead-based eyeliner and the red lip stain. After her face was clean, she would take a second, quicker bath. This wasn't the vigorous, exfoliating scrub of the morning. This was a soothing and calming affair. The water might be scented with relaxing herbs like chamomile or water lily, designed to soothe the mind and relax the body. It was a final, refreshing rinse to wash away the last traces of the day's heat and dust, signaling that all her public duties were done. Of course, after that bath, it was crucial to reapply moisturizing oils. But the oils used at night had a different purpose. They weren't for creating a public, radiant sheen. These were for deep, overnight nourishment and repair. Her skin, clean and warm from the bath, was in the perfect state to absorb the rich oils, ensuring that her body stayed soft and hydrated through the dry night air. And one of the most significant moments of the evening ritual was the removal of the heavy, formal wig. You can just imagine the feeling of relief, of liberating her head from the weight and the heat of that elaborate headpiece. But the wig itself was a valuable object. It wasn't just tossed aside, it was carefully placed on its own dedicated wooden or ceramic stand, which preserved its intricate shape and style for the next morning. Her shaved scalp, which had been under the warm, heavy wig all day, was then tended to. A servant would massage a light, cooling oil into the skin. You can just imagine how incredible that must have felt. The soothing, gentle pressure, the release of tension, and the cool oil providing instant relief. It was a moment of pure, sensory pleasure, a quiet and personal comfort that marked a definitive transition from her public role as queen back to a private individual. The fragrances of the evening were also deliberately different from the powerful, assertive scents she wore during the day. The nighttime perfumes were chosen for their calming and sleep-inducing properties. Instead of the stimulating scent of lotus or the rich aroma of myrrh, the oils and incense used in the bedchamber at night would be infused with gentler fragrances like soothing chamomile or the delicate scent of the water lily. The whole atmosphere was designed to be a serene, olfactory lullaby, gently guiding the mind toward peaceful dreams. And her bedchamber was the final sanctuary of clean, a pristine environment that was meticulously prepared for her rest each night. This space was treated like the inner sanctum of a temple. The cool stone floors would have been freshly washed, and the air would be still and fragrant with that calming incense. The centerpiece of this sanctuary, her bed, would be freshly made with crisp, clean linen sheets, creating an immaculate, orderly haven to protect her while she slept. It's interesting because the Egyptian bed itself was quite different from what we're used to. It was usually a simple, elegant wooden frame with a woven base of reeds or linen cords. But instead of soft, fluffy pillows, the Egyptians used a curved headrest, which was typically carved from wood, ivory, or even smooth stone. This might sound uncomfortable to us, but it was designed to cradle the base of the skull and support the neck, keeping the head elevated and cool, which was perfect for the warm climate. And now, the cycle of the day's rituals would come to a quiet close with one final, bookending act. Just as her day had begun with a purifying mouth rinse, so too did it end. A servant would present a small cup of water mixed with that sacred salt, natron, and she would perform a final rinse to cleanse her mouth before sleep. This single act brought the entire, elaborate day to a close, a final seal on her purity before she entered the mysterious world of dreams. So, when you take a step back from all these incredible details, the big question is why? Why did they do all this? The simplest answer is also the most profound, because they truly believed that a clean body meant a clean spirit. For the ancient Egyptians, the physical and the spiritual were not separate things. They were deeply intertwined. They believed that the purity you created on the outside directly reflected and influenced your state on the inside. This relentless, daily routine was also their way of creating a small pocket of perfect order in a world that often felt chaotic and unpredictable. It was a physical reflection of the most important concept in their entire culture, Ma'at. This was the cosmic principle of truth, balance, and divine order. By performing this perfect, unchanging ritual every single day, the royal woman was doing her part to uphold that cosmic balance, fighting back against chaos with her own personal discipline. And on a more practical level, in the intense heat of Egypt, controlling body odor was a huge deal. It was a clear and immediate sign of your social status. For most people, smelling of sweat and daily labor was just a fact of life. So, to be able to control your scent, to smell only of expensive flowers and resins, was a powerful statement. Not being smelled was just as important as being seen, because it showed you had mastered the baser, animal aspects of being human. But we have to imagine that this life of enforced perfection was also a heavy burden. Think about the immense, constant pressure of never being allowed to be anything less than flawless. Every single day, from the moment she awoke, she was the subject of this intense ritual. Her body wasn't truly her own. It was a symbol of the state, an icon of purity that had to be maintained at all costs. It was a life of incredible privilege, but it was also a kind of gilded cage. You can't help but feel that it must have created a kind of quiet loneliness. To be admired, but only for the perfect, flawless image that was so painstakingly created each day, is to be kept at a distance. The servants who weren't allowed to look at her, the highly ritualized interactions, it all built a wall around her. There's a deep solitude in being treated like a perfect object, because it means the messy, imperfect, human parts of you are never truly seen or accepted. In the end, what we have to understand is that for these royal women, their hygiene routine wasn't just decoration. It was a profound act of definition. It was the very substance of their identity. Through these relentless rituals, they were actively defining themselves, day after day, as beings of order, purity, and divine right. Their immaculate state was the physical proof of their superiority and their legitimacy to rule. It's a funny and powerful thought that their carefully constructed, clean silence spoke louder than any title or crown ever could. A crown is just an object, it can be taken or lost, but the state of being they cultivated was an internal, unassailable reality. Their power was in the profound absence of the ordinary, the absence of dirt, of sweat, of common smells, of chaotic noise. That pristine silence was a far more powerful statement of their unique status than any piece of jewelry. It's a powerful reminder that for them, the old saying, "Cleanliness is next to godliness," wasn't quite right. For them, cleanliness was godliness. To be pure was to be divine. It was a fundamental pillar of their entire belief system. The daily, hours-long effort to achieve that state was the most important work they did, because it was a physical manifestation of their connection to the gods. And this powerful belief system didn't just stop at the edge of the grave, it extended right into the afterlife. The Egyptians believed they would need all the comforts and necessities of their earthly life in the next world, and that included their hygiene tools. That's why their tombs were packed with beautifully carved cosmetic jars still filled with coal, with bronze razors, with combs, and with fresh sets of linen, ensuring they could stay clean and beautiful for all of eternity. But we must never forget that this entire, beautiful illusion of effortless perfection was a system built on the invisible, tireless work of countless servants. The Queen's serene, flawless image was made possible only by the sweat and labor of dozens of people, from the laundresses scrubbing linen in the river to the attendants who spent their entire mornings in silent, focused service. Their intense, hidden work was the true foundation upon which this divine image was built. And now, as our story comes to a gentle close, you can imagine the lights in the palace beginning to dim. The long day of rituals is finally complete, and the precious oils and cosmetics have been put away in their elegant jars. A quiet calm begins to settle over the royal quarters. The performance is over, and a deep, well-earned peace is descending upon this ancient world. The royal women have retreated behind their veils, disappearing into the deep privacy of their bedchambers for the night. This final act of withdrawal is symbolic. The public icon, so carefully constructed all day long, has been dismantled. The Queen has become a woman once more, her private thoughts and dreams now shielded from the world, lost to the great silence of history. It's a quiet moment, isn't it? A world of silent ritual and fragrant air that feels a million miles away from the busy, noisy lives that most of us lead today. The palace is still. The servants have gone. The lamps are low. It's a moment of profound peace, a stillness that has echoed down through the centuries to find us here, now, in our own quiet rooms. And so I want to thank you for taking this walk through the ancient halls with me tonight, for stepping so quietly into this fragrant, forgotten world. Your willingness to listen, to imagine, and to journey into the past is what makes telling these stories so incredibly special. I hope that it has brought you a little bit of calm and maybe a new sense of wonder. My final wish for you tonight is that this story has given you a little moment of peace and a lot to dream about. I hope that as you drift off, your own thoughts can be as calm and pleasant as the world we've just visited. May you find a quiet space in your mind, free from the noise of the day, and may you rest deeply and restoratively. And now, as our journey through this ancient world comes to a soft and gentle close, my wish for you, as you get ready for your own sleep, is that your dreams might be as soft and your thoughts as peaceful as the world we've just visited. May the quiet tranquility of those stone halls find its way into your own room tonight, settling over you like a warm, comforting blanket, chasing away the noise and the clutter of the modern day. Just for a moment, try to imagine it. Imagine the feeling of cool stone floors under your feet, the faint, sweet scent of lotus still lingering in the air, and the deep, profound, quiet rest that comes at the end of a long, purposeful day. Let that feeling of ancient peace be your companion tonight, a quiet reminder that even in our busy world, there is always a space for stillness and for rest. May your sleep tonight be as gentle and as refreshing as a cool breeze blowing off the Nile River. Picture that soft, steady current of air as it rustles through the papyrus reeds along the bank, carrying the scent of the water and the night-blooming flowers. It's a breeze that brings relief and a deep sense of peace to a hot land. And I hope that same feeling of gentle, cooling calm can settle over you now, soothing your mind and carrying you effortlessly into a deep and serene slumber. Just for these next few moments, let the silence of the ancient palace settle around you. Allow the imaginary quiet of those hallowed halls to become your reality. There are no more tasks to be done, No more demands on your time. The servants have all retired for the night, the lamps are dimmed, and a profound stillness has fallen over the entire world. Let that silence be a gift you give yourself tonight. And as you settle into that quiet space, give yourself permission to let go of the day's worries and concerns. Whatever happened today, whatever is on your mind for tomorrow, just gently set it aside for now. Picture those worries as little boats, and just let them float away down the river, disappearing into the darkness. They don't belong here in this moment of peace. The long day is over. The rituals are complete, and it's time to rest. Just as the royal women surrendered to the night after their duties were done, you too can now surrender to your own need for rest. You have done enough for today. You are enough. The performance is over, and all that is left is the simple, honest, and necessary act of resting. And remember, the world can wait until morning. The emails, the to-do lists, the plans and the problems. They will all be there for you when the sun rises. But for now, they have no power over you. This time is yours and yours alone, a sacred space carved out of the night, dedicated solely to your own peace and restoration. The night is a time for peace and renewal. It's a time when our bodies heal, our minds process the day, and our spirits find a moment of quiet refuge. Embrace this time not as an empty space between busy days, but as an active and essential part of your own well-being. This is where you recharge, where you find your strength again in the quiet and the dark. And so, I want to say thank you again for joining me on this journey tonight. It means more than you know that you would choose to spend your time here, exploring these quiet corners of the past with me. It's a real privilege to share these stories with you, and I am so grateful for your presence and your quiet companionship. Your curiosity and your willingness to explore the past is what makes this so special. In a world that is always rushing forward, it's a beautiful thing to be able to pause, look back, and find the shared humanity in those who lived so long ago. It connects us to the great, long story of being human, and it reminds us that we are all part of something much bigger than ourselves. I truly hope you've enjoyed this glimpse into a truly different world, a world where every action had a deeper meaning, and where life was a deliberate performance of sacred beliefs. I hope it has been as fascinating for you to listen to as it has been for me to share, and that it has left you with a sense of wonder and a feeling of calm. It was a world of order, of scent, and of sacred silence. And while we may not live in palaces or practice such elaborate rituals, there is so much beauty to be found in those three simple ideas: the peace that comes from a sense of order, the joy of a pleasant scent, and the deep, restorative power of true silence. My final hope is that you might carry a little of that peace with you, not just into your sleep tonight, but into your day tomorrow. Remember that feeling of quiet purpose, of deliberate calm. Let it be a little anchor for you if things get noisy or chaotic. You can always return to this feeling of stillness inside yourself. And on a final note, please remember to take care of yourself with your own small, daily rituals. They don't have to be hours long or involve priceless perfumes. It can be as simple as the way you enjoy your morning coffee or taking a few deep breaths before you go to sleep. These small moments of intention and care are what build a life of peace. They are so much more important than you think. They are how we create our own little pockets of order in a chaotic world. They are how we show ourselves that we are worthy of care and attention. They are our own modern-day version of the sacred, and they are powerful. So, with that final thought, I want to wish sweet dreams to all of you. May your mind be filled with beautiful images, and may your heart be at peace as you drift off. Thank you for being here, and thank you for listening so quietly. Rest well, and recharge for the new day to come. You deserve a deep and unbroken sleep, a night that truly restores your energy and your spirit. Let the darkness be a comforting blanket, and let the silence be a gentle song. Until our next journey together, I will be here waiting to explore another fascinating corner of the past with you. But for now, Our time together is at an end. It is time for stories to cease and for dreams to begin. Good night, my dear friends. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this community. It is an honor to share these quiet moments with you.